Alright, I don't have to explain what Toy Story 1 is or what Iceberg images are to you. The only thing I need to clarify first is the usual, this is a series, so make sure you have the next video on the list ready warning. Aside from that, if you're wondering and haven't seen it, I have done an Iceberg and explanation series for Toy Story 2 before, so if you want, you can go check that out after this. Anyway, let's get the tip out of the way now. Revolutionary movie. I don't need to really explain this much. You all know the impact that this movie had on everything and cinema and animation and all that. It was credited as the first fully animated CG film, and there's been plenty of shit that has inspired since, and it's what really put Pixar on the map and gave a lot of growth to that and changed fucking Disney, so yeah. To infinity and beyond scene. Another thing I don't really have to explain, it's just on here for being the most iconic scene and one of the most iconic movies ever made, and yeah, you know exactly what it is just by seeing this screenshot, and just talking about it and thinking about it alone makes me want to watch it again. It's so well put together and climatic and gives you chills with the way the music sounds and Woody yelling to infinity and beyond with his arms spread out as Buzz is carrying him and they're falling with style. It's just such an exciting moment. I love it. Al's Toy Barn mention. So this is a small little detail in the first film, is that after the Buzz Lightyear commercial comes on, they mention that it's sold at Al's Toy Barn, and while it was a really small and insignificant mention here, of course in the sequel it ended up being a big deal. Deleted scenes. So this is something that just comes with any movie like this, and it's all the way up here because people generally know them well enough, and there's that one scene of Sid torturing the toys, and there's also earlier cutscenes from earlier drafts that we'll get to in just a bit. Tin Toy. This is a short that Pixar made in the later 80s, and it's what is served as the main inspiration for them to have the Toy Story movie to be about toys moving around and being animated, aside from of course the fact that it's what looked best of the modeling at the time. And I'm sure everybody has seen this short by now, and I think it's probably even been included in Toy Story VHS tapes, so yeah. Early designs and concepts. Really, really interesting and deep stuff, but it's become so well known at this point. I'm sure everybody has seen it a bit at least, and this just has to do with earlier ideas and, designs and such they had to do with the movie, such as Woody being more of a puppet and Buzz Lightyear having a different name and being small and red, and it's an interesting design, and you can see all these early test animations and stuff, and there's also deleted scenes that are still in the storyboard format. They can see with the climax when they confront Sid and all of that stuff. I really suggest you go dig it up on your own. And there's also a particularly infamous thing with this that has to do with the overall tone shift that the movie had before that we'll get into now. Black Friday reel. This is the most infamous and well-known thing that has to do with all the early drafts and beta builds, if you want to call it that, of the movie. And what this was is that it was a reel that they showed to the executives and higher-ups at Disney and such like that. And they showed them to it on Black Friday, which is where it has its name from. And it's the scene of Woody pushing Buzz off the window, except here it's a lot more cynical, it's a lot more darkly toned. And, it's a lot more edgy and shitty, and everybody's just a lot more unlikable, and, yeah, you can see all of the other, differences of how shit's laid out, too, and how they purposely throw Woody out the window, too, and Swink being the one that has him encourage it to do it, and it was after that where, they were saying that they want, the film to be more dark and edgy like that, because, that's what the audiences want, but it was after that where they thought that they were going too far, and they're like, okay, we really need to tone this down and make it so that the characters are actually likable, and, instead of seeing Woody and thinking, wow, what a fucking jerk, you instead, you actually like Woody, and then when he starts doing stuff like this, where you're like, oh no, Woody, don't do that, you're better than this, and, yeah, and The darkness of this inspired a creepypasta that was by the same name of it, and that's actually how I first found out about this back then. So yeah, it's pretty funny. Future Pixar cameos. So you can interpret this in two different ways. The way I was mostly thinking of when I include this on the chart is that the characters themselves appeared in future movies, like Woody was in the bloopers reel on the credits of Bug's Life, Jesse was in Monsters Inc., and then the Pizza Planet car, of course, appeared in many other films later. However, another thing that you can see this as is that claims that there were early bird cameos in this movie for characters who later appeared in other Pixar movies, which is something that they have done before in the past, but Toy Story doesn't generally have much of that as far as I can remember. But there was one infamous myth regarding this that will come up in the next layer. Obscure, one-off, and assembled Dark Horse characters. This is a big shout out to all of the other toys in Andy's room, essentially, the ones that don't really have any sort of role in the plot, like Rocky and the Shark, howdy, 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 and Snake and Robot and Hockey Puck, and I love all of these dudes. We need to give them a big round of applause. I love them, and they deserve more attention and credit, and I wish they were more included in other things. I mean, they are in other things, but past two, it's like, they don't exist anymore, which sucks, but hey, I mean, Rocky's in the racing game and stuff, so yeah. Anyway, that does it for the tip, and next up we're going to be touching the surface.